few years back, kale became the hot, trendy vegetable of the year. Everybody was making kale chips, and I didn't really get into it until after the fad was over, but I thought I would share what I've learned. So, kale is a wonderful, wonderful vegetable because it's one of the highest nutrient vegetables you can get. It's technically a cabbage, which grows in colder climates, and so you find it's a really good choice in the winter because it grows in the colder climates and survives so well. But a single cup of raw kale, 2.4 ounces, has 206% of your vitamin A, 684% of vitamin K, 134% of vitamin C, 9% of vitamin B6, has 26% of magnesium, 9% of calcium. So don't need to be so dependent on milk. 10% copper and 9% potassium and 6% magnesium. Now I will say kale is actually a little dangerous for people with thyroid issues. It actually works against me. So it's not something I can eat daily, but it's a pretty darn healthy thing to have once in a while, just as long as it's in moderation. I don't like kale. It's kind of bitter, and the one way I have learned to like it is to turn it into chips. That if you bake it for 10 minutes at 350 degrees, you turn it halfway through, it turns into like a potato chip. It's a little bit bitter, and it became a fad, and when I tried it, I hated it until I discovered dino kale. Dino kale is it's tall and skinny, and it's less leafy than normal kale. And I find that normal kale, when you bake it, it just disintegrates into this like powdery crispiness, which I don't like. Dino kale is a little bit sweeter and a little less bitter. It's got a little bit more of a nutty taste to it than normal kale. So if you're gonna make kale chips, I highly recommend dino kale. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna wash your kale, and then you're going to cut out the spine, the big thick stem in the middle, and then you just slice it into the pieces that you want. And then you're going to fluff it, you're going to drizzle it with olive oil and fluff it up in a bowl, and then sprinkle it with salt, and then lay it out on a cookie sheet and just spread it out just roughly, and then stick it in the oven for 5 minutes, flip it over, and then keep it in there for 5 more minutes, and you're done. That's it. It's really, really simple, and I like it. It's the only way that I can eat kale. Just thought I would share my tip with you. And one other thing I've learned about kale is it's going bad when it starts turning yellow. From what I read, you really shouldn't eat it once it gets yellow because that's a point where salmonella can sneak in there. But other than that, I mean, there's my oven. It's ready to be cooked. Other than that, it's a really good snack for summer, winter. It's a healthy thing. So another tip with kale is some people like it with liquid aminos, which is basically like a nutritious soy sauce. I'm not a soy sauce fan, but Bragg's amino oils, some people will drizzle this on there, and it turns it into quite a savory snack that ups the ante just a little bit. So there you go. Sure, take it on the Oh, thanks. So I forgot to mention before that part of making kale chips is that you're drying out the chips. So when you rinse it, it's really important to blot it with a paper towel to make sure that you're starting with a dry base. That you add the olive oil to it to help it crisp, but you don't want to start with a lot of water on your chips. But this is what it looks like after you've crisped it This is a little bit moist because I forgot to blot my chips. If you overbake it, it will burn, and that's why I use the parchment paper on it, because it is a nightmare to clean up if it has plastered itself to the baking sheet. But this is pretty much it. It's just you wash it, you cut out the center, you cut it into small chips, coat it with olive oil and a little bit of salt, and then you bake it for 10 minutes, and that's it. Now this is not going to trick you. It's not going to taste like a potato chip. It's got a vegetable taste to it, but because it just came out of the oven and it's really fresh and it's got a nice crispness to it, I find it enjoyable. As I said, it's the only way that I will eat kale chips, or kale in general. Anyway, thanks for watching.